The Hail Varsity Radio Saturday morning show. Strap yourselves in. Here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt.
Y'all don't even know he was a virgin until he's 28, and now, roll tide.
And Mark Kraynak.
Time has come for someone to put his foot down. And that foot is me.
Welcome to it. Weekend editions here at Hail Varsity. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, and Mark Kraynak here shortly. Hope you're doing all right. Hope you're all safe. A lot of ice and slick conditions in the regions around eastern Nebraska. We'll get our starting five shout-outs. Busy week with coaching additions, player additions. You know, you had double dip last night on campus with Husker basketball and Husker volleyball. Elijah, you navigated, dude, to the station this morning. God bless you. You went and got coffee. How brutal is it? The pups were out the back door here, and 2 steps in, it was sideways for them, trying to sprint out to do their business.
It wasn't that bad. Neighborhood's a little slick. Credit to the road crews of Lincoln, though. They did a good job getting salt down. All the main arterials seem to be flowing pretty good. So big credit, obviously, every single winner to the Lincoln road crews, but especially this weekend. You see videos from Omaha. And I know they got hit just a little bit harder than Lincoln, but my goodness, some of those streets in Omaha look absolutely impassable with how icy they are. Down here in Lincoln, not quite the same, little slick, but I think Lincoln's road crews did a really good job staying ahead of things, getting salt down, and making sure everyone's moving good. So no real issues this morning for me in that road. That's
big time to hear. Wow, what a week it's been. The elevation of John Butler. Braden added as Terry Braden from Kansas City. Still waiting on that official announcement. Phil Simpson is officially announced. And, of course, Nebraska able to land Williams Winery. And that's got some folks excited. Husker volleyball on to touch gloves with Wisconsin Sunday, and Husker basketball, man, a 17-1 run to close things out. Bryce Williams, big time. Asijan was nice, 4 double-digit scores. And, of course, Captain Morgan. I love watching Morgan play. That guy is just a spark. You were there at PBA last night, and Nebraska started out, jumped all over Indiana, and the Hoosiers came back, and then Nebraska they were blistering all night long, right around 60%, and they crushed it from 3-point land. So despite a good tweet by Mike Schaefer last night, 9 missed free throws, nearing 20 offensive rebounds allowed, as I was watching last night, Nebraska didn't face them. They're not going to win every game allowing that, but their offense was just too good last night.
In Indiana, what was their final statistics shooting the 3-pointer? Like whenever they came back into the game.
They started out 5 for 8. They ended up like 9 or 8 for 30 something. Let me pull it up.
I think it was 35. It had been a while since Indiana had attempted 30-plus 3-pointers in a game. Yet yesterday was that day. That's how Nebraska plays defense, to be fair, is they kind of collapse down and try to dare you to outshoot them from 3-point land. Indiana tried to do so. They couldn't do so last night for the exception of that first 10 minutes.
8 for 35.
Oh my goodness.
22.9%. I can't hover into the teen percentage wise, so I'm going to shut my mouth. But I'm also not a Division I player at a blue blood. So, hey, you did give up 15 total offensive rebounds. But Indiana didn't capitalize off of that either. But every time Nebraska needed a big shot, it was Bryce Williams doing his thing. And I just loved the energy from what I was able to gather off my couch. You were there. Nebraska is putting together kind of it's not so subtle. It's a do not enter or beware of dog type sign every time opponents come into PBA.
Yeah, and I would say PBA 80% full last night. There was a good handful of open seats just with the weather last night and with Husker Volleyball. Still great energy in that building, though. I mean, great. I think it kind of starts with the team, obviously, because there were some nervous moments as well from that PBA crowd, but that team, I think, had to bring a little juice back in the second half near the end of that first half as well. They brought it. The fans brought it. Husker basketball 1-1 in conference. I think it was a good performance. One of the ones that you needed to have. We kind of talked about that. Was that 2 weeks ago? As we were previewing that Michigan State game. I guess it would have been a week and a half ago. That, you know, it really feels like if you can't get Michigan State, you needed to go and get Indiana. You needed to get one of these two games. You get one of these two games, and now you kick your feet up for a little bit before you head off to Hawaii.
You do, and Nebraska is in some good vibes, which is nice. Keota Davis came back. We know Emmett Johnson is back. Kobe Bretz is off to the portal. I'm hearing different things about Nate Borkature. I'm hearing that maybe the door is not completely closed. And yesterday we talked about some of the SEC schools that are really interested in him. That's Alabama, that's Texas A&M for certain. And I think you have a guy in Borkature, or if Gus is saying it, Bo Richter. Borkature is somebody that, man, I would love to see back in this offense, despite the fact you've got Harburg moving to tight end. You've got Lindenmeyer at tight end. You still have Fedoni at tight end. You've got some younger guys in that tight end room, but just because Holgerson's not used tight ends a lot doesn't mean he wouldn't use tight ends. And I just imagine a world where you can have him and Carter Nelson and Bonner as some of your slot options or flex out options, and just do work. And I just think of Borkature's ability to get open, right? The last 3-4 games once Dana got in there, and you know, Borkature's one of these guys that I think's always practiced the right way, just for whatever reason didn't get his in-game opportunity, and that might be a little bit of a failure on, you know, some of the previous game plans. But he was used, and no doubt teams had to pay attention to him here towards the end of the season. Some really not only nice, you know, gash catches. We're talking, you know, 17 or over yards, but he's good after the catch. And he is that big athlete that can run. So we'll see if things trend, because we've heard a whole bunch of different things. Like, is he in Bama this weekend for a visit? Is he going to send a tweet out later that he's running it back? I mean, precedent's been broken, thankfully, where you can enter the portal, but you can come on back from the portal if you're the right guy in Emmett Johnson and Keota Davis. I would put Borkature in that class of, he's a guy you want back, especially with the number of snaps he's had and just kind of the upside he has. And finally, you got a guy that's going to be calling plays that can use it.
I just don't know that from a how should I say, payroll standpoint, he's necessarily going to be a priority to bring back in the portal. That's kind of what I'm hearing, is that there's other schools that are going to have more of a priority.
Outbid.
Maybe that's a better word. It feels still weird to say in college football nowadays, but yeah, I think there's going to be other schools that are willing to outbid what Nebraska is willing to pay. Does that mean he's not going to be willing to come back? No, it's not always about money. But it does not sound to me, from what I understand, that Nebraska is going to have the highest offer there. There's a couple different schools. The school I heard last night was Miami. Miami might want Nate Borkature.
So you got A&M, Miami, Bama.
It's kind of what I'm hearing.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I just would be surprised if Nebraska ends up being the highest bidder there. That's what
I get it.
But that doesn't mean he's unwilling to come back. I'm just saying I don't think Nebraska is going to be the highest bidder.
Maybe the pride of Aurora gives the old hometown discount. It was always the Patriot discount. Bill Belichick's back in college. That is nuts. It's been it's been absolutely the week of news. with college football. So we'll get our starting five shout outs. We'll hear from Brandon Vogel in a little bit. Mark Kraynak on the way. Tuck gets in and got in at 5:12 a.m. Tuck, God love you. It was a Husker winning night last night. Let's keep it going. 2 weeks from today, it's New York, baby. Nebraska and Boston College. Mike from Cali is in. Wow, that's a 2-hour time difference. Mike, we're going to tip a drink to you, brother. Uncle Larry is here. Big win for basketball. We owed Indiana a curb stomping. Yeah, you did. Yeah, Kobe says Borkature in College Station right now. You've got the Ellsworth connection that used to be on staff, Elijah, and he's done some work down at A&M as he found his way down to Texas. Walter is in. Congratulations to Army winning the Joe Moore Award. Bleep you, Mizzou also. Walter in with some fire. Mr. Erickson is here. NASCAR Eric checks in. Michael checks in from Kansas, stuck at work in a December thunderstorm. Sorry to hear that, Michael, but be safe, dude. Brent here. Red Knight 79 checks in. Rick says, I'm in Omaha. You can't walk across the street. Rick, it looked absolutely horrific with cars sliding sideways last night on social media. That's no good, man. Be safe. Weston is here. Good to have Weston back in. Tim. And Tim asking the question, is the show on today? Yes, the show is on. We were just, can we just say fashionably late? Yeah. Fashionably late. I had to reboot the computer.
And I had to drive somewhat slow. Not really, but we'll say that. Where's Kraynak? That's the real question.
We're going to give Kraynak the pass because Kraynak's probably trying to get Tucker in and out to do his business. And Tucker is a mini horse, and if Tucker, if
Bloody Mary 3 times,
if Tucker
summon me,
if Tucker wanted to pull Kraynak, I mean Kraynak's on ice skates this morning. We're saying it was we're going to blame the pup because of how.
Have you seen dogs in all this crap yet?
Oh yeah, I have 3 outside that once they hit the cement, it was. A fish tailing out to the yard.
It is perfect. Do they learn though? That's the thing.
I have 3 that won't.
Okay. Yeah, because Tucker he just about bit it. Like really, because he sprints and he's just like, wah! And then on his way back, he like paused and he walked slowly. I was like, oh my god, they learn. So yeah, it was all his fault.
The German.
It took 17 minutes, obviously.
That's fine. The German learns, but the puppy Sterling he's racing around upstairs here on wood floors, and he slides everywhere. And then Grandma Roz, the oldest, she just kind of does her own thing. She dive bombs Carson, lets the other 2 go outside first, so she'll go fullback goal line to open his door. And then just all 85 pounds of love finds a way to dive bomb him on his bed. And I always kind of stand back and watch his reaction because, you're snoozing away and here comes 80 pounds off the top rope.
Perfect.
To see his take. And you, Grandpa, is in. Good to have you. A rare Saturday appearance. Kobe, good to have you in with the Sipple picture. I love that. Arlo's here. Good to have you, Arlo. We'll get more comments coming up. Kraynak, we were just touching on the week that's been. We've spent a little bit of time on Borkature and where his direction leads. Keona Davis back. Phil Simpson in. Braden is yet to be officially announced. Butler elevated. And, Husker basketball and volleyball pretty dominant last night, which was a good thing. So we'll see. I'm interested here to get your thought, Kraynak, on just the week that's been, specifically Butler. Do you think, let me ask it this way, do you think Nebraska, in lieu of Tony White leaving, and we'll get Brandon Vogel's take here in a moment from Counter Reed, you think Nebraska can upgrade on their defense? That's the intent, right? The intent is to be better at getting after the quarterback. The intent is better to be on third down. You can't have any UCLA repeats, right? Where teams just convert, and 17 minutes later it's a field goal and your offense hasn't had the football. That's an extreme worst case scenario for Tony White's defense, or what Indiana did, right? So do you upgrade with John Butler? And that's a hard yes right now to utter. Well, you have 2 years of history and work from Tony White, and the defensive side of the football is the only reason you've won any games, quite frankly. It's not been the offensive special teams that's done it for you in Nebraska's victories. It's been the defense and just enough offense, just enough incompetency or competency on special teams. So I want to get your thought here, Kraynak, on Nebraska's direction.
Yeah, I don't know if it'll be immediately apparent either way. You know, if you look at what Tony White had in common in his two defenses, you know, you had good play throughout, but you had Ty and Nash. Maybe I'm putting too much into just those two guys, but I think starting with those two as stalwarts to essentially hold the line, I mean, literally, you know, to hold the line for a couple years in a row and do it pretty well, to where we noticed when they didn't, right? Like you almost kind of took for granted that they would, and you losing both of them. That's going to be tough for anybody, especially for as excited as everybody was about Keona Williams, and you should be because of his potential. It's not like he was much of a contributor this year, right? I mean, it's not like you're bringing back guys with, you know, multiple beards and grandpas, right?
No,
and
it's
beards and our
snap
grandpas.
counts just too concerning. Yeah.
So I don't know if it'll be readily apparent, and that's something that I think we should all prepare for, unless, of course, you go into the portal and then you come out somehow better than those two. But I don't think there are many defensive lines in the entire conference that wouldn't have been happy with those guys as a starting place, right? But you do need to supplement more on the edge, and I don't. It seems like Nebraska would be so extreme on the third down part, because if you look at third down conversion for the year, I haven't looked at it yet, but I'm guessing they're middle of the road. If you look at college football stats,
they're probably right? better. They're probably better, but when they weren't, it was glaring. I mean, right. You've got your Iowa and you've got your UCLA examples.
Right. But we're right. Yeah.
And they're both losses.
Bad, it was bad. Yeah. When it's bad, it's bad. So Butler's got a tough gig, right? Just because of that alone, I think in year one. But the fact that what Nebraska is assembling now is also the opposite of what we've all been complaining about since Pelini, which is the on-the-job training situation with a lot of the coaching staff. For whatever reason, Nebraska coaches and different Nebraska coaches, different administrations have opted for allowing dudes that were, you know, golf instructors the year before, and he ended up being fine, right? But I'm just saying, like,
he was good.
He was. It was really good. No, he was. But you know what I'm saying? Like, you took flyers on people, right? You took flyers and you kind of hoped. You brought in Garrett McGuire, who's like, I mean, come on, he guy's 12, and you had him be a receivers coach. You had, I mean, even you could just go down the list, and there were so many times where Nebraska would employ as a full-time assistant. It's their first ever assistant role, like first ever. Now you have assembled this brain trust of veteran dudes, and you're going to have veteran guys. I mean, if you write down veteran, if you look up veteran assistant coach in the dictionary, there's Dana Holgerson. I mean, come on now, you know, And then you have to say the same with Butler, even though Butler doesn't have a ton of coordinator experience, the exposure he had to the NFL level, having been a coordinator 10 years ago and being a pretty good one, actually 12 years ago, or whatever it was. You've got a veteran group of guys that seems to be the formula in the Big Ten that works the best, right? Doesn't it?
Yeah.
Maybe outside of Oregon, Dan Lanning, he's not necessarily a super veteran, but he's got lightning in a bottle out there. But for the most part, you need to match wits with some serious dudes that have been doing it for decades. And Nebraska's got a plethora of those guys now, with Butler, and then of course with Snow being, I don't know, kind of the co-defensive coordinator maybe, or whatever his role is.
Not officially.
Not officially. But that's what's struck me the past couple of days is there's a little bit of comfort in that. Okay, you don't have guys with training wheels on. You got guys that have been there, done that, know what they're doing, and they got a crap ton of money to throw around to get some players.
They're spending it for sure. Brandon Vogel with us from Counter Reed. Vogue's been the week. How we doing? Thanks for hopping in. And I look at kind of what Kraynak was touching on, and experience is king. You want to be old in basketball. You want to be old and grizzled in the Big Ten on Saturday afternoons on the gridiron. And you want to have guys that have an answer for an in-game adjustment that takes one series, not one half. And you know what? You got to be able to do it on the fly. I think there's not much football John Butler hasn't seen. I just and maybe the guys that Nebraska has on staff and in that locker room are going to be able to pick it up, because they're going after some dudes that they're really targeting Florida. And that's completely fine with me, because they play at a high level and they are tough and they're physical and they're gifted athletically. So that's a sweet combination. But what you don't want is paralysis and analysis by analysis. And you don't want your defense playing 4 steps slow, because the kitchen sink is in there to check based on what the offense is doing. And we've seen that historically in Nebraska. And then, some of those 90s defenses flipped it around to making checks completely easy. You're going to run 2 types of coverage and go do it well. So the complexity part is kind of what I was picking up from what the Thursday press conference was putting down, where the defense just needs to be a little more complex, coverages, right? Specifically. And time will tell if Nebraska can go execute it.
Yeah, it will. I think the adjustments part of this and the increasing NFLization of college football is becoming more and more the game, and particularly in the Big Ten, in a larger Big Ten, where the baseline quality of the coaching in the league is so high. It's becoming like the NFL in that way. And, we'll see if what we saw this year with kind of a leveling of the college football playing field is something that continues long term, or if it was a 1-year blip. But if that is the kind of long-term trend for college football, whoever is able to, take a series or 2 and say, okay, hats off, nice chess move, nice opening gambit, here's what we're going to do in response. The teams that get the better of that are the teams that are going to win. And I think this was kind of a under-recognized part of what Indiana did. I thought they were very good at that piece of it. And, it's only one model, and don't put too much stock in any one number. But the McAleese Sports going into the year had Indiana as the top-ranked coaching staff in the Big Ten. Oregon was second. And it looked that way when Nebraska played them. That's really what that one looked like to me. And it was interesting when Butler was at the podium, said, just flush that one, which makes sense. A lot of coaches say that when you get beat 56-7.
It was a big one to flush.
Yeah, it was kind of
clogs the toilet
moment.
That one is not going down easy.
Two flusher.
Get the plunger, honey. Honey, where's the plunger?
What did you do?
My God.
Where do we go from here?
Nebraska was 30th in third down percentage. Mark was asking for that number earlier, so there you go.
Hey, thank you. That's where
Did
we
they
go.
feel like it though?
Well, they held Iowa to 0 for 10, so I'm guessing they were
helped?
probably like 44th or something like that going into that game. So yeah, that did help. But I think listening to your guys' portion of the conversation and certainly sentiments that I have, like it seems like there's some general reservations about the move Nebraska made a defense coordinator. But I thought the part that Butler said that most struck me is like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And this is an area of growth for Nebraska. It was when he talked about kind of those havoc plays. And Nebraska was really heavy havoc team, which is good. Like it's kind of the explosiveness for defense. But the way he talked about that of like, those negative plays are great, but it doesn't help you all that much on third down and in sort of those specialized situations. So there's Nebraska's going to have a hard time. I think, well, you guys were talking about the defensive line. Like, they're not going to have two guys as good as Nash and Ty Robinson were this year. Like, unless they like hit the ultimate home run, which would require a lot of money for a defensive tackle in the portal. Like, really encouraged by Riley Van Poppel. But like, go back and watch the Rutgers goal line stand or the Iowa goal line stand, and you can just see it's Ty and Nash like moving the line and blowing up the play without even making tackles. That's gonna be hard to replace.
Yeah, and then especially when let's see, we got comment in. Vogel always looks like the adult at the dinner table, completely all over the kids' shenanigans. It's probably just the books behind you that just give you a certain prestige.
I wish it was that. Unfortunately, I probably always had that kind of aura since I was about 15. So yeah.
Stately and intimidating, quite frankly. We can't. I mean, look, he just cocked his head and gave us the side eye. And I let me ask you this, folks: with the two little ones at home, has there been an Animal House-esque food fight?
No, not yet. The younger one's still she's working on her throwing motion, so she's not quite ready for that yet. We actually do pretty good at mealtime for some reason, but I wish they were more intimidated.
Because you're the adult at the table, brother. They're not going to piss Dad off.
It might only work at the table. So it goes.
So continue, Mark, please.
No, it's all you. It's all you.
I was going to take us back to football, so if you want to double down on that.
No, that's where I was going to go to.
Okay, back to football and back to defense here, Brandon. I want to dive into the takeaway numbers for Nebraska's defense. That was something that was really emphasized both in year one under Tony White, but especially last offseason with Nebraska's turnover issues offensively. They wanted to get the takeaway numbers up defensively. Do you think Nebraska's defense under Tony White did a good enough job generating those takeaways?
I mean, they definitely didn't hit their internal metrics. We know that because you can see it on the walls anytime you watch Chasing Three or something similar. But those numbers are like really high. I wrote about that like 2 years ago, and I remember talking about it when they were at Baylor because they were the same. It's like, yeah, you get 30 takeaways, you're going to be pretty good. Now just go do that. So I don't think Nebraska was bad in terms of its numbers of takeaways, and I haven't looked at like their turnovers luck recently enough to remember where they were at. Fumbles are fumbles. It kind of becomes the interception piece and getting to the quarterback, which they were, I think, 30th in sack rate this year. So they got to the quarterback a pretty good amount. Just didn't kind of come away with as many interceptions. The other big piece with takeaways is how often are you playing from ahead? I talk about this all the time. It's probably boring. It sounds like a broken record, but like that's it. Like fumbles are going to happen whenever fumbles happen. And credit to, saw a couple times with John Bullock, like went and made a fumble happen. And that's good. You'll get some of those, but the ability to really boost your interception numbers largely comes from, well, you got to be talented, but sure helps to be ahead because then teams are going to throw more. Like teams face more third downs, whether it's third down or not, because they become more predictable.
There's a comment in the stream about the complexity too, but here's one. Getting off the field's been a big issue no matter how well the defense played the last 2 years. Yeah, it's true. And you wonder, it's hard to know because the only team that you watch as closely is Nebraska, right? And so you wonder if that's is that kind of how it always goes if you lose, no matter where you're at? Maybe, but it does seem like almost disproportionate. And oh man, as soon as they play the third down music, and you hear it's third and 2, and then you're like, oh my god, it's like Pavlov's dog. I know what's going to happen here. They're going to they're going to complete get a first down, and Nebraska's
specifically
not
the final 3 minutes of the fourth quarter.
I was gonna say at any point in the UCLA game to hear the PA announcer do the third down thing, just knowing what was going to happen, it's like demoralizing in the stadium when it's third 1, third and 2, or third and 7.
Yeah,
that's supposed to get the crowd into it, and the entire crowd just goes, "Well, we know what's going to happen here."
No, yeah, we all have association. It's triggering. It's not good. It's not good at all. Now, Butler said something in the press conference though about how, hey, it's not about what the coach knows; it's about what the players do. Something along those lines. To the point about whether it's going to be too complex. I think he was talking specifically about in the secondary, right? In the secondary being more complex with coverages to disguise better, to trick quarterbacks more. Because if you look at how many times do we sit here and say, oh, there's another sort of average quarterback that just had a career day against Nebraska and completed 29 of 20 passes. Like, how do you do that? He completed more passes than he threw. He did it. Like, that's it.
He's a third team backup.
Yeah, he's third team backup, and he is just slicing up that secondary like nothing. And I think what Butler was getting to was just like, well, it's because we were playing checkers coverage wise. So I think he's saying they have more capacity to learn. There is much more room for them to be a little bit more complex, and at least him acknowledging that it doesn't matter, how great your scheme is if nobody knows how to run it, says that at least I believe he's not going to put too much on them. I don't think he's going to put too much on them.
It's real easy. Go get guys that can get to the quarterback, and it makes your secondary look a hell of a lot better. You can be as easy or complex as you want to be, but you combine it with a little more, what are they doing with some of these coverages? And even if it's a short drop, I mean, Nebraska has done a pretty good job of getting after the quarterback, but in some of the ball games, it needs to be better. I mean, you're still 6-6, and bringing a guy like Keona Davis back is meant to get after the quarterback, and investing in Williams Winnari, 5-star guy that everyone's buzzing about, which is great, but can he jump, from a guy that was the 6th or 7th best player in the country per the recruiting rankings.
Yep.
With his talent, it didn't translate to immediate impact with just 38 snaps at Missouri. I mean, how often do 5-star edge guys redshirt? I'm not knocking him. I'm saying that's my question with, Missouri, and they've won a lot of ball games the last 2 years. So that needs to be real. And you want that impact, because we're in the time and era right now where it's there's no such thing as hurry up and wait anymore. Everything's accelerated. You gotta go invest and bring in, and you have the ability to do it and get some instant impact guys that are ready. And if they're not ready, you better get them ready quickly.
Yeah, I mean, to take it back to kind of the question you guys had at the open, like, how does Nebraska improve from here? So, basically a top 20 defense this year, top 10 defense last year. So, like, even just maintaining would be pretty good.
That'd be
but
great.
Like, the answer is in pass defense. Like, coming into 2024, that was like the biggest growth area I saw for the defense, because they were really good against the run a year ago. And we saw, things slipped a little bit, but they can still be like the Tony White Nebraska defenses, like, their strength was defending the run. And defending the pass is increasingly more a part of the college game, but it's also just more important. It is, when you look at like what a pass game can do to an opposing defense versus what a run game can do. Now, you don't want to be a team where everybody can just run it on you at will. That's not going to work. But if you're like, you're going to be 55% strong to 45% the other way, like I would choose pass defense every time, even in the Big Ten. So that's the path forward there. And to the complexity piece of this, like that one's interesting because I think offensively they're going the other direction. They're going to dial things down, cut the play sheets down, which is needed. But can you do this with college guys with an NFL coach? You should be able to, if the coaching is good, because teams are running this, these disguised coverages. Like that's the very trendy thing, and teams across college football are running it. So if we get to next year and it looks too complex for Nebraska to handle, like something has gone wrong because other people are doing it.
And you're bringing enough guys back in the secondary, I think, that at least you've recruited well enough to where it feels like you're not in the same situation that you are currently on the defensive line, where you're just like, you don't even have the bodies right now. Like you don't even have the bodies, let alone production. Nebraska's got enough dudes there. When you were watching the secondary, which is why I think people were so maybe not enamored with the hire, is because they just look at how the secondary played. Who was the secondary coach? Oh, it was Butler. We don't like Butler, right? That's kind of what it was. But at least when I watched the secondary this year, I didn't hate them as much as I think a lot of people did. I really didn't. I was just like, to me,
well phrased.
Well, they caught a lot of crap this year, because I felt like in general they were there. They were in position, right? I mean, you have that chasing three motto. It's sort of like chasing 3 inches, right? I mean, you're right there. That Hartzog was, oh my God, I see your guys' ridiculous responses. You guys are 4 years old. I tell you what, you are 4 years old.
Oh, you should have heard Schmidt talking about that P word a couple days ago.
Oh my God.
Well,
it's so juvenile. It's so juvenile. Our dad's here. Stop it. Our dad's very disappointed in us. Like, knock it off.
He's angry and he's disappointed.
But you very rarely saw, I go back to like the 2017 Nebraska defense when it all fell apart, or the 2007 defense when it all fell apart, which means 2027 every 10 years. Oh my God. But we got a few years until that happens. There were huge busts, guys that were wide open, Nebraska not contesting anything, nobody within yards of the receiver. I mean, it was just a complete Olay situation. I mean, that was not the case this year. It wasn't the case, right? I mean, Nebraska was generally in position, which tells me they were pretty well coached. And I think what Butler was saying was hands were tied a little bit because you couldn't get exotic or disguise enough. And then teams like Indiana were on it with that veteran coaching staff. That was ranked super high by McAlee Sports and just diced you up because you did not you didn't mix things up enough to confuse the quarterback. The quarterback had no confusion. They knew exactly what you were doing.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to go and look and see what they did for each game. But like, you had quarterbacks, Luke Altmaier, Ethan Garbers probably had their best day of the year against Nebraska. And I'm with you, Mark. Like when you look at the secondary overall, like I would say it's an above average group, compared to the rest of the country. Might not have been a whole lot above average in my mind, but team, you're going to have coverage busts, like you just are. It largely comes down to like how many of them hurt you and how many of them don't, because nobody ever notices where like, oh, that safety was supposed to be in cover 2. He missed the call, something happened, but the quarterback just didn't find him. So those pieces have happened. I did think Nebraska struggled in man coverage a bit, which that's not a scheme thing. That's winning one-on-one thing.
Personnel.
Yeah, and when you look at the third down and when Nebraska tended to struggle in that, UCLA is kind of the first example that comes to mind for me. They did a good job of doing the things they wanted to get into man coverage, and they won those. Because I mean, in today's game, teams are going to throw the ball on basically 3rd and 4 or longer, and sometimes even like 3rd and 3, depending on how good of a rushing team they are. So again, like a lot of where's the growth area for Nebraska? It's getting better against the pass. However that needs to happen. And hey, you got the secondary coach, the former secondary coach, as the new DC. It'll be the defensive backs coach hire will be an interesting one. I've been doing this since 2011, and I think this is like the 150th defensive backs coach that Nebraska has had.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Wait, before we flip it over to Gary Sharp and get you back to parenting your actual kids instead of us, I do want to get your quick thoughts on Husker volleyball as they took down Dayton last night. I wouldn't call it stress-free, especially with that third set, but they took care of business. They look good doing it, and it's on to Wisconsin. The Badgers loom. Want to get your thoughts on what last night looked like to you and what you're expecting to see against Wisconsin.
Yeah, ton of credit to Dayton. There's not a lot of teams in the country that have taken a set off Nebraska. And for them to do that in Nebraska's home floor in a tournament setting, super impressed. With a killer outside hitter who's 5'8", 5'10". Loved watching that. But for Nebraska, I think it was good to get stressed a little bit. And now it's right there in front of them. Like, you know what Wisconsin is. You haven't dropped a set to them. So there you go. Dayton has done something that Wisconsin has yet to do this year in terms of take a set off Nebraska. I would expect this one to be pretty tough. It's the old cliche of, beat a good team 3 times. That's Nebraska's challenge, and it's gonna be a fun one to watch.
Vogel, what's happening with Counter Read? CounterRead.com. How can folks get signed up? Tell them what you do.
Yeah, head to counterread.com and get all the information there in terms of what we do and get a little taste for what we've been up to. I had a big kind of NCAA regional round volleyball preview go out on Thursday. Aaron tackled some of the coaching stuff yesterday, and so we'll be back on Monday. So it's a twice weekly newsletter. That's what you can expect. Kind of recapping volleyball. I've been doing some digging into transfer portal stuff. That's kind of interesting, but interesting in a way I wasn't expecting about what sort of portal players work, I think. So I've been trying to jump into that for a while now, and I think I finally found a way to hack into it. So we'll see. That'll be coming in the next week or two, probably. We need to spend some more time with it.
Brandon Vogel with us. CounterRead.com at Brandon L. Vogel on Twitter. Read his book with a guy named John Cook, Dream Like a Champion. Vogues, we will see you soon. Appreciate you, man.
Okay, thanks, guys. You guys be good. Remember the show.
No more food fights. No more food fights.
Nebraska ended up 5th in the Big Ten in third down conversion. The worst third down conversion performance of the year. Guess what game? Don't look.
UCLA?
Don't look. No.
Probably Indiana.
Nope.
Ohio State.
SC?
Well, no, Ohio State was awful on third down against Nebraska.
Nope.
So,
who?
Come on.
Are we talking Nebraska's offense or defense?
Nebraska's worst third down percentage
defensively.
Ohio State wasn't very good.
Never mind. It was Indiana. You were right.
Yeah.
I was looking at the wrong one. Never mind. I was looking at.
Hey,
look at that! Look at that suspense.
Good start.
I accidentally broke into offense, and it was UTEP 64%. I was like, wow, weird. I wonder how Nebraska won.
Wrong data. The Iron Horse is with us, Gary Sharp. Sharpie, how are you?
I'm good. How is everybody? I'm not in
a week.
Yeah, well, I'm not in Nebraska, so I did not get the whole ice storm. So I hope everybody made it home safely last night. But yeah, that was a mess. But how about the night in Lincoln?
Yeah, that was big, man. Volleyball was challenged and looked just overwhelming. Husker basketball jumped out early, closed great late, and You had to have it. You absolutely had to have it to get to 1-1 before you go off to the island. So, and the guys responded, didn't they, Sharpie, to Fred's tone all week? He was not a happy dude after they got absolutely embarrassed
Hey,
by Sparty.
have we flipped the script on Fred? People were not really happy with Fred, but we're at about 2 years where Fred Hoiberg's Q rating has changed, and I think it's something you said, Schmitty. Like what he did, like he pushed the buttons after Michigan State. I mean, they didn't prepare well, they didn't practice hard, and they got what they deserved.
Mm-hmm.
And then he had a whole week to get ready for Indiana, and they're closing yesterday. I mean, their ability when Indiana kind of kept it close, but to hit the X button, and they had the alpha Bryce Williams, and he brought Andrew Morgan along. That was not only a good win. I think that's who Nebraska is. In the development of a Siegen under Fred, I think Fred's really turned the corner. I think Fred is back to being a really good college basketball coach.
He had to kind of learn the hard way, Elijah and Kraynak and Sharpie, and he did learn, and he made the necessary adjustment. Like, how do you win in the league, right?
Yeah.
And who do you go after? You've got NBA talent that jumps off the charts at you on film, and when you look at somebody, but how do these puzzle pieces fit together? And he's been more about the puzzle pieces, and he's done a really good job. And his method is to go to the North Dakota State route. Let's bring a dude we think can play up a level and see if he can. And that's been successful. I wonder, Elijah, football goes that route when it comes to portal.
I think the example that I look at this year that never really jumps off the screen, doesn't jump out of the stat book in terms of the numbers that he puts up, I think it's a real steadying force for that offense is Raleigh Worster. Like, he's a guy that,
I like him.
Yeah, he's not putting up crazy numbers, not putting up crazy assists. You watch him on the floor and he's fine, but he's such a steadying force for that offense. I think he's a really good example of Fred Hoiberg understanding what you need to win in the Big Ten and understanding what puzzle pieces he needs to put together in order to get there. He's a really, really good example of that because, I mean, I would be surprised if we get a 15-point outburst from Raleigh at any point this season. Like, that's not who he is. Maybe you'll get a high assist number game, still probably not, but both ends of the floor, brings the energy, is a willing rebounder in terms of boxing out, doesn't always get the boards, but then offensively, not many turnovers, keeps things in rhythm, steadies the offense when things aren't going well. He's just a perfect example of Fred Hoiberg understanding what he wants in the portal and how to put his puzzle pieces together to get a Big Ten team.
Hey, we've talked about this before, but something we just said about Fred, learning to push the right button, making the right addition in the transfer portal, constructing a roster that is aligned from top to bottom. He made a decision on his coaching staff to boot Abdel Massi, brought in guys that fit more of what he wanted to do to win in the Big Ten. Could you cross the interstate and go over to Memorial Stadium and just drop that in? Isn't that what Nebraska football is kind of where we're hoping that all of those things will align in year 3? If you look at the path that Rhule is going down.
Well, you need it to be, and our old dear friend Brian Snitley, part of the Boulder Peace Treaty, highlights a couple of folks that Nebraska is targeting from the MAC, and I love that. MAC guys are a lot of times guys that absolutely could play at the Big Ten level, and you've got Pace and Olds are a couple of defensive examples that Nebraska needs to get on. So you had the talking point of splash. Well, it wasn't about splash. Let's elevate Butler. Let's put this defensive staff together. And Matt Rhule thinks that's the right fit, and we'll see where it goes. And for Nebraska fans, you hope it is. But you got a monster splash with Williams Winari coming in. So there's both of those dynamics there. Sharpie, what's your take on, I guess, expectations? Do you think a guy like Williams can come in and just thrive in a new setting? I mean, he's got a connection here already with Mosley, obviously.
Yeah, I think that we're probably, because he was an NIL kid, and I mean, a big NIL kid, they changed rules in the state of Missouri for him. The expectations were through the roof in Columbia, and he didn't, when he was on the field, he looked a little bit out of sorts, but that's a defensive lineman trying to play in the SEC. And Nebraska may actually benefit for him, kind of participating in a year in Columbia. Not only the familiarity, so you know his game, you also have somebody that knows him as a person. So I don't know if he got lost in being a freshman in college and there was nobody there that he could turn to. Now he's got that guy at Nebraska, but he's also he's got, Mizzou developed him for Nebraska. Now we could say he should have came to Nebraska right out of high school, but he made the decision to stay in state, and that was a win for Mizzou. But it's a win for Nebraska because that defensive line all of a sudden is starting to replenish a little bit with Keona Davis coming back. I'm very intrigued by him. I think the change of scenery and just in year 2 of playing college football on the defensive line will benefit him. Nebraska's got to have a plan for him, but he's young and there is a lot of room for development. And you pair him with a new defensive line coach. I think that was for the first portal pickup, and Nebraska isn't done and they can't be done. I think that was a really good start in a position of need, and probably for a kid that needs Nebraska.
Mm-hmm. Especially when you consider Prince Will leaving at the time, the highest rated defensive lineman in the portal, right?
Yeah.
And so the only way you can get better is, it didn't look like it was possible until, how do you pronounce his last name again? Nwaneri. Yeah, until Nwaneri went in.
Is he the first guys in a decade that if he plays up to his potential, he reminds you of Randy Gregory? Maybe not the body type and everything, but you get what I'm going at. Like a pass rusher off the edge that Nebraska hasn't had in a decade.
You lose. Folks were freaking out about James Williams, right, and Princeville, and you go get this guy with the potential. But you need a game wrecker like that. You need a guy, and then you need a partner in crime, don't you? Yeah. You need an interior guy to also push. And you mentioned Randy, and I think back to Randy and Malik, both those guys raised hell. Really good a couple of years with both of them. So, give me Nwaneri off the edge. Keona Davis, we think can be really good against the run, but also one of those guys that can win one-on-ones, and could be big things for Nebraska because we get back to the Butler discussion. It's going to be about that pass rush that helps the secondary out.
See, I don't ever, the thing, and creating havoc. I think that's another thing. I think Nebraska needs to create havoc, stop the run, create havoc. The whole discussion with the elevation of John Butler this week, which was kind of the plan. They went stability, familiarity over whatever you define as splash. Is I don't worry about Rhule not having a good defense. I don't worry about under Matt Rhule, Nebraska struggling on the defensive line. Those are like two things throughout his career from Temple, even in the NFL to a part, and then the 2 years at Nebraska that you never really went, oh my gosh, they're in trouble there.
Yeah, and he also got some of those guys to play as youngins too, right? Like some of the guys that came in, Prince Will played, right out of high school. So did Leonard. So did others. So he's shown the ability to integrate younger players and have them ready. Riley Van Poppel, I think all of us were kind of surprised that, oh man, he could help you this year. Like why you're redshirting him, right? And when he did play, he played really well.
Because Nash and Ty are leaving.
I know, right? But it's just like, but it feels like he's been able to integrate young players as well as you could expect defensively. And then you supplement that with a few transfers and things are fine. Gary, okay, here, what is happening? You cover Metro high school football, Omaha Metro high school football. I did for years too. And when I was covering it, there weren't as many Division I scholarships being offered to Metro guys. You would get maybe 4 or 5 a year is about what it amounted to. That's jumped to closer to probably a dozen. They're not quite working out lately at Nebraska. And let's extend Metro even to Lincoln too. You just look at receiver alone. Malachi Coleman, Isaiah McMorris, Davon Hall. These guys are staying for a year.
We're going to put Betts in there.
Oh, thank you. Xavier Betts. You can just kind of go down the list. Metro area guys not sticking, right? What do you think is behind that? Is it level of competition that is sort of like fool's gold to where it's such a jump when they get to college? Because the measurables seem to be there.
So that's a great question. And I thought about this the other day because, I have great respect for Bellevue West football program. I consider Mike Huffman their head football coach, not only a guy that when we do games that, I really like, but a friend.
Yeah.
Bellevue West is on a run of about a decade where there's very few guys that go to Nebraska that stay at Nebraska. Yeah. There's very few Bellevue West guys now that go Power 4 or Group of 5, more Power 4, that stay at their original school. I mean, Keegan Johnson is on to his third school. He's going to transfer from Kansas State. Now, not all portal entries and transfer decisions are the same, but that's a lot of Bellevue West guys that have left. The one guy that I wish would have stayed was A.J. Forbes. Went on to have a really good career on the offensive line at Montana.
Yeah.
Here's what I think. I think Nebraska is not for every big-time in-state kid, but there is so much pressure and attention for an in-state kid to go to Nebraska that sometimes it handcuffs them, where Nebraska would be a better second school than a first school, because everybody has watched them in high school and they expect them to be the same type of dominating player they were when they were in high school, and it doesn't equate. Now, there have been there have been a lot more positive stories of Metro, Omaha, or Lincoln kids that have gone to Nebraska and have succeeded. But you're right. There's a list of players that barely get on the field and they're off to somewhere else. I just think that Nebraska is not the ideal spot for every in-state kid, but it could be the ideal spot for the second time you go. I use Zane Flores as an example. We wanted him. He wanted Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State more wanted him. And, he hasn't got on the field regularly there, and he's battled some injuries. But doesn't Nebraska seem like a good second spot for him? But if he comes to Nebraska his first time, he might have already transferred out.
Yeah.
Because Raiola is here. It's just a weird dynamic. I think there's some really, really good stories. There's the John Bullock stories. And then there's some stories of, I don't want to use Davion Hall because I don't think he should have come to Nebraska. I think he never elevated his game after his sophomore year, but he was an in-state kid that everybody went, whoa, Nebraska had to have him. And he surprised the hell out of Nebraska when he committed to him. They were like, did he really just commit to us? Yeah, coach, he did. Okay, let's bring him in the office. So, you have to recruit in-state kids. We love in-state kids. But I wonder, do you guys think it changes now that the roster is shrunk, that the in-state kids you pursue is not just every top kid in the state, but the kid that will come to Nebraska, will develop, and then will get on the field instead of in 2 years they come in your office and say, Coach, man, I think I got to go.
It's got to be the right kid. It's always got to be the right kid. Yeah. But in this, you have expedited timetable because everyone can win now or win next year when you flip your roster. The roster flipping has been embraced because it is portal madness. And you have seen other teams, Colorado, Indiana, flip and win. And everyone in your fan base is like, dude, why can't we do that? And I love the development part of this, where some guys are going to take some time. The rub right now is by the time you get some guys developed or you invest in them, they're off somewhere else.
Yep.
So you've got to be really accurate with the personality part of things. And you got to have and pray you get him a kid that's mature that understands it may take him a little bit longer to get better and stick it out with you. And it's not the era or time where folks stick it out, unfortunately. So I think you have pressure at Nebraska to absolutely gobble up every in-state kids because the fan base will lose their mind on the one that got away, right? The other side of it is the old coaching adage that our old buddy Jack Pierce used to say is, you sure as hell got to take him, but you don't have to play him. Well,
yeah, nowadays. Well, who's there's more pressure on to get on the field? Tyson Terry or Malcolm Simpson on the defensive line?
Well, you think? Well, it's
I like both of them.
Yeah.
I like Simpson a lot. I think that's a good hold for Nebraska in the recruiting class. But Tyson Terry, knock on wood, the knee holds up. could be a 4-time state champion in wrestling. We've seen him dominate the last couple of years when he's been on the field. Unfortunately, his senior year got cut short with the knee injury. But that's going to be, man, there goes Tyson Terry. And then people are going to go, hey, there's that Simpson guy.
Well, I think
even though the Simpson guy, Malcolm Simpson's probably a better prospect and maybe has more upside.
I think potentially the better way to phrase that is who's going to get the louder cheer in Memorial Stadium when they make their first career tackle.
Yeah. Yeah.
The in-state guy always.
Yeah. I hope for the best for Tyson, because remember, he'll be an older freshman. He won't be, he'll be a grown man body at 19, but depending on what they do with his knee, I don't know what that means for next year.
Do you guys get the sense when you saw Rhule this week that he's just kind of fed up with a few things? He seems like he's a little fed up with the portal in and out, where he said, as a guy that's been very pro player, he's very pro player. Like, he wants to treat them all right. He wants to make sure they're well taken care of. But he made a little comment about, hey, there's some guys that go in the portal that we'll welcome back. There's other guys that aren't.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, okay, that's different. That's a little bit different than he had been talking before. And then he mentioned the thing about the ridiculous rumor about his 50-year-old wife being pregnant and people congratulating him.
Hey,
like, for him to call that out in a press conference,
fishbowl, baby.
Hey,
for him to call that out in a press conference, he just seems a little fed up right now. Not that he wants to leave, but just kind of like, all right, we need to get down to business here because there's too much crap going on.
I mean, that rumor was BS, and that could be uncomfortable. I mean, you're walking down the street and someone comes up and is like staring at your wife to see if she has a baby bump.
Yeah, by the way, that's
bull.
You know Brian Regan, right?
Yes,
the comedian.
yeah.
He has a whole thing about that. Like, that's the last thing you ever want to ask a question.
It's the last thing you can ever be wrong about.
Like, when's that baby due? What baby?
So something to Mark's point here. I mean, come on. There's the balance of how people see Rhule when he stands in front of him, like the other day, that's an 11-13 football coach. And then I think Rhule wants everybody. He doesn't run away from 11-13, but I look at him this way. I look at two different Matt Rhules. Matt Rhule, 11-13, and you have opinions on what happens on Saturdays. And then I am on the new Matt Rhule post UCLA, because he's become a little bit short. He's become a little bit. I'm going to drop hints of I'm going to take shots at some people, and he did. Whether it be the former staff on something he said on Thursday, somebody that used to be on his staff, or players that are currently on his roster, that post UCLA with decisions that he's made, he's kind of flipped to, instead of the happy-go-lucky Matt Rhule, shucks, man, Nebraska is great, to it's time to get down to business, Matt Rhule.
Yeah. What kind of shots did you hear?
Well, one was about development. The other was about being a friend. Being a friend. They don't need a friend. They need a coach.
Yep.
And I think that pertains to the wide receiver room.
Yep. Kind of goes back to parenting.
Well, it may be this case, guys. And again, Nebraska's got to win next year. That's the bottom line. And there's no guarantee. We can't just say, you know what, year 3 at Temple and Baylor, he made the jump. Nebraska's completely different. So there's no
college football is totally different.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
There's no guarantee, but it almost feels like, and we've talked about this a lot since, actually since UCLA on Saturday mornings. Doesn't it feel like Rhule has tried to take back his program? Instead of trying to let the players be player-led and decision-making and let kind of everybody do their job, he flipped that. Now he is taking back his program because it's his butt that's on the line when we flip to 25.
It's no more Mr. Nice Guy, right? Yeah. I tried to be compassionate and friendly and roll with the punches and everything's going to be okay. The optimistic part to now it is brass tacks time. It's time to win. It's time to climb the ladder in the league. And I can't botch this with a place that just prints money for me. Yeah. I mean, Volleyball's working on a 200th consecutive Final Four. Basketball's fixed it. I mean, he's got to hold up his end of the bargain, and he's tweeted that before. And he's sick and tired of saying, as you put it, "Aw shucks, no more." He's going to start going Joe Pesci in Casino, and he brought in Dana.
Program,
He's then to signify that flip, it is Dana time, and he's going to hire more Danas.
Yeah, I like that's a great line. That's a great line.
You're going to get it more in your face, or you're going to watch, or you're going to leave. But here's how it's going to be, and good on him. Better late than never.
Yeah, because I think, guys, do you think? I mean, Rhule came in, and coming from the NFL, I think probably initial discussions were like, "Hey, man, you just can't come in here and clean house. We've had a rough past year."
He's tried to.
Yeah, he had guys sitting in front of him that were juniors that were like, "Coach, man, I just want one more run for the ring. I want to go to a bowl game. I'm all in it. I'm on GBR." And Rhule, kind of not knowing the situation as a completely outside guy, said, "You know what? I need that kind of guy on my roster." He probably, when he first came in, should have pared that roster down so we would not be in the situation we are now, where you got to make some decisions on guys that are leaving, and you're like, "Man, I wish I could have him for one more year."
Well, and listen, he did.
He didn't want to run anyone off.
Yeah.
Well, and he over-indexed on the culture keepers piece, probably, right? And then if you think about some of the guys that led from the front from that regard, they weren't your best players, right? They weren't the best performers. In fact, in some cases, they were liabilities, performance-wise. And I think he had just dealing with that of just being like, look, we can't, these guys are sort of the heartbeat of the program. They bleed Husker red. You got to give them their respect. They're helping us out with the transition. He's not going to have that next year, right? I can't think of too many players that you would say that about now, right? Ty, Nash are obvious. Gifford, obvious. Buford, to a degree, he's coming back. But yeah, he's not going to have. I feel like he hamstrung himself, and bringing in Holgorsen, I think reminded him it was as good for him as it was for the offense to bring in Holgorsen when Holgorsen rolls up and it's just like, your big receivers are blocking like crap. That's what's happening.
Bro, you got a chaw. What are you doing?
Yeah. He's just, Holgorsen kept it simple in that regard. He's like, when you block, the running back needs to hit the hole, right? Like, what are we talking about here? So he simplified it from that regard. And I think it made Rhule step his game up. You know what it's like? In a place of business, if somebody comes in to like your atmosphere, your company, your whatever, and is pretty damn good, you're just kind of like, oh, snap. Okay. Okay. Stakes have just gotten raised a little bit. It just feels like that's where Rhule is at right now.
And I think in your course of your career, you get one of those. But we've seen past coaches that never use it. And so Rhule between year 2 and 3 has used it. And now, I mean, his future will be determined by his 2 coordinator hires.
Yeah.
It's not going to be that still shaky time and game management on Saturdays. It'll be his coordinators, and then you can go, Matt Rhule, the CEO, made the right decision in Nebraska football. You know what? They found the right guys and they're moving forward. Or you made a bad decision. You're still stuck in the 6-6, 7-5, 5-7 world, and we got to move on. And I think he knows that. I don't think he's running away from that, which the urgency or I say I'm on a year-to-year contract, not a year 3 of 7, actually might be okay for Matt Rhule in this situation, for Nebraska to get to where they want to go, where there's a sense of urgency that it's time. Instead of, hey, we're gonna kind of build this and we're gonna get it going. It's time to start winning and stay winning.
Gary, in an off season of course corrections, I think is the right way to put it, for Matt Rhule and the Husker football program. One that I've noticed kind of flown a little bit under the radar. It's been picked up, but do you feel Nebraska kind of shifting? Yeah, the 500-mile radius, which Kansas City's a part of, and you've seen them dipping into Kansas City some more. But do you find it interesting they seem to be moving their hotbed from Texas to South Florida and specifically Miami? that seems to be the new place they want to go. And you look at Simpson, bringing him in, the Miami guys that hit last season, you keep on going down there for recruiting. I think you're going to get a defensive backs coach with ties to to the city of Miami. What do you make of that course correction that Nebraska seems to be flipping from Texas to Miami with their hotbed?
Elijah, you're right. You're spot on. But doesn't it mimic, like, you were talking about what could happen with the defensive backs? Simpson comes in. You look at Braden, who is a Floridian. I think it kind of their blueprint for recruiting matches their staff. Like guys that have grown up in that area, that's now their area. And it used to be at the beginning, you had so many Texas connections on the staff, and you still do, but you don't have a tight end coach that was hired because he has a connection. He's not really a tight end coach. He's a guy that has recruiting connections. He's not here. Garrett McGuire is not here. Now they have Florida guys. But I will tell you this. So you lose a Floridian in Tony White, and you lose Terrence Knight and a Philadelphia guy that has fallen in love with Florida. And they would be the two guys on the staff that would tell you it's important for Nebraska to recruit the border states and in-state. But, man, for us to make the next jump, we got to get Sunshine kids. And so that's where their role was. So you replace those two guys with the state of Florida. And trust me, that there is so much talent down there, but you have to play the game. And then when you get a player out of there, like Nebraska has the core of Miami kids right now, they've got to play. You got to have a plan for them. And if they have success, you've turned on the faucet. But I think one thing that helps is a Simpson and a Braden being on the staff, and maybe a potential Floridian connection with the defensive backs, is Florida kids come here, guys. And this has been told to me by coaches that I still stay in contact with in Florida, or some of the Florida kids that come here, is they're not afraid to come to Nebraska. It's when things aren't going well and they're a long way away from home, and things they grew up with in South Florida doesn't look the same in Lincoln.
Heat.
Who is that? Yeah, heat. Just different things that you see on the streets that you don't see in Lincoln. Who is that coach there that I can go to and go, man, I miss home? And that coach says, hey, I was the same way. Man, I moved my family here and things were different. But this is the great thing about Lincoln, and what we can stick together, and you'll find out that, man, there's a lot of things that you grew up with you can find right here. That was kind of missing you remember that stretch of Florida kids during the COVID year? There was a good core of players. They didn't have that. And then COVID, you're kind of lost and you're lonely, and those guys transfer. I think that's a key point of Rhule's going to recruit them, but he's not just going to bring them here and leave them. He's got guys that can relate to him. And that's a key part of – see, I all of the hires this week from Butler, Snow, and Braden, don't overlook Phil Simpson coming back.
Yeah.
I think that's a key part in the recruiting. But I think he can develop into a nice position coach at a position that, they're going to need some productivity out of the outside linebacker spot this upcoming year.
I wonder if they will assign him a position versus, because Rhule alluded to in the press conference also of, hey, there's so many things you have to do as a Nebraska coach. It's a different deal here. I basically need a second set of eyes, right? So when I leave the house, the kids don't throw a party, right? They still know that, hey, there's work to be done, and Phil knows him so well. He knows exactly what he needs to have done. What about Rhule's? Does it show confidence? Does it show desperation? None of the above, all the above, with his decision to bring in guys that, frankly, could have his job and he could work for them, right? Like, Holgerson could very well be a head coach right now that Rhule is working for. I mean, he's brought in, and Snow too. Snow's got the chops now to where people have offered head coaching jobs to people with lesser resumes than that. What do you make of Rhule bringing in guys that are more peers than ones that he's mentoring?
Shouldn't we be celebrating that though?
That's what you got to do.
Yeah, I mean, we went so long with, my God, Frost has surrounded himself with yes men.
Mm-hmm.
Now you got a head coach who is just surrounding himself with the head coach of the offense and the head coach of the defense. And I'm okay with that. I mean, you have to be comfortable in your skin to make those decisions, but you also have to do it not for yourself, but the program. And maybe you do it for yourself, but you're doing it for the program, and you take your emotional tie or, control freakism that all head coaches in college football have out of the picture. and you got to do what's right. I mean, I think he's made decisions where he gets us. It's time to win. Consistently win.
The thing that's speaking to me,
Ed Foley in the comments.
Well, yeah. There's still a bowl game to play 2 weeks from today, and then we'll talk.
Boys and girls, there's a thing called professional courtesy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. No, the thing that is great about Rhule with these hires, he's confident in his own ability. I mean, i.e., I'm the boss, right? So I'm not going to feel threatened by this. The job is to go play high-level football, be competent, and move. It's bigger than me. Is what he's doing.
Do you guys think he can get out the way?
Well, that's the thing. It's okay to have lots of cooks if it's a line where everyone gets to put their input in and it's a wonderful dish. But
if the cooks like cooking together.
Yeah. you can't have 7 Gordon Ramsays, otherwise you got a knife fight. So that's the thing. But you've heard staffs talk about them being at each other's throat from time to time, but it pushes towards greatness. So I don't know if that's it or not. If he's in the way and the coach that he's trying to talk into something isn't strong enough to say, hey, yeah, you're the boss, I get it, but you're bleeping wrong. Yeah. You need to have personalities like that, and I think you got one in Dana.
Hey, do you guys feel better about Nebraska football this Saturday morning than you did last Saturday morning?
I do a little bit, just from
and you can say the same.
A standpoint of, I like who they're looking at in the portal, and I like that you've got Keona Davis back. All right, and
what about Berkshire?
I like
Berkshire coming back.
We hit that earlier. I wouldn't bet on it.
Hey, did you see who is interested in him?
We were talking. It's Miami. It's A&M. It's Bama.
Hey, good for Nate. For Nate.
Meanwhile, the poor guy's been gathering dust for 3 years until Dana got here.
Can we stick with tight end real quick? Can you guys help me here? I don't want to overreact. When you go through the tight end room, and now Harburg's going to be part of that room, and I'm sorry if you guys touched on this earlier. When you don't mention a couple of guys, does that mean anything?
You mean in the presser when
he was going through the
Fedoni was not named?
Well, and then another one who we kind of forget about. Is the LSU tight end still good to go after an injury?
Markway?
Yeah. Because they were excited when they got him, but then he got here and got injured right away.
Yeah. Haven't heard much about him, which maybe that's a good or a bad sign. I'm not sure. How about the move, though, Harburg to tight end? I like the idea of a quarterback moving anywhere because presumably he understands where people are supposed to be.
Yeah.
And so that part's already built in, the cerebral understanding of the offense. But then just athletically, if you were to pick a position, if you knew nothing about Harburg and you just saw him work out and you just saw his size, wouldn't you think tight end or rush end?
Yeah. Or H back?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right? Like that's kind of what you would think.
Do you move him and keep him there at the expense of losing to Borkacher, or maybe it won't matter?
Well, he's going to know the plays.
Yeah.
So he has that. The thing will be teaching him how to play tight end, what they do with his body to become a blocker. And, you gotta, if you're going to make a move like that, you got to have a good coach that can coach up somebody that is new to the position. I think it's an intriguing move for him because I think he probably wants to play in the NFL, and that would be his best route to the NFL. But what happens with the quarterback room now? Is Gramstad like more in than out that he could give you at least an option as a third or fourth quarterback? I mean, I've been advocating for a portal quarterback.
Well, I think you got to look at a portal quarterback.
And I've been saying good luck finding one.
Well, but not only find one, but will that be allowed?
Yeah, but and maybe this is the case because the one thing about the 105, you don't have to be to 105 until the first game. So you don't. It's not like you have to be to 105 by the 28th of December. Maybe Nebraska goes into spring ball because, correct me if I'm wrong, Latif is an early enrollee.
I think he is.
Okay, so that's a bonus because I really like him. I mean, I think people are going to love his game. That you maybe have a small quarterback room. But then after the spring portal is maybe when you get your portal quarterback that maybe is a veteran that can be a mentor in that room that has played a little bit at the group of 5 or power 4, but they get they understand the landscape of you're not coming in here as day one starter, but you're going to have a chance to compete. And you never know, you might have a chance to play with an injury or, competition.
Gary, we have people in the stream asking about TJ Latif. I want to get your thoughts. Is that a guy as a true freshman that coming in you can rely upon as a backup? How would you feel if that is your backup next?
Well, I wouldn't want to rely on a backup or as a backup as a true freshman, but I think people are going to see his arm, his legs. Now he's more mobile than Dylan. Quietly, that was a really good pickup for Nebraska that they were able to hold on to, even with Dylan on your campus. I think he's the heir apparent to the starting quarterback job at Nebraska, but I think that's tough to put him in a situation where you have a true sophomore at quarterback and your backup is a true freshman. That's why I would like somebody in between. And I'm not saying redshirt Latif, but, do you want him out there day one if Dylan goes down? Or maybe you do. I'm not sure how they're going to look.
In today's world of college football, I mean, you got to play the kid. So you keep the kid, and if he performs great, if not, then there's a high likelihood of if they don't go back to him, then they move on. That's just every quarterback room in major college football. So you roll the dice.
Who's going to run the quarterback room?
It's got to be Dana, don't you think? And that's his history.
Didn't he skew more receivers? No.
Well, he went from inside receivers coach to offensive coordinator quarterback because he's I don't recall off the top of my head I think he worked with the quarterbacks at West Virginia and at Houston. I mean, all those guys that went into the league. Leach worked with the quarterbacks at Tech, but
guys, just as we're talking about this, the amount of colossal changes happening in college football right now, like we can't even keep up with just talking about it. Imagine running it, right? It's absurd, the things that we're talking about right now, and just wondering like who's going to coach the quarterbacks when what we all have in our head is, well, you get 10 coaches. That's what you get. You get 10 coaches, so you got to have this guy coaching that. You have unlimited coaches now.
Yep. The only restriction is who's on the road recruiting.
So what is the optimal staff makeup in that environment? Nobody knows because nobody's done
Simpson to where they can go kill it and tell them what you want, and they'll bring them back.
But can you get so specialized that you have an offensive guards coach and an offensive tackles coach and a blocking tight ends coach and a receiving tight ends coach and a receiver? Like you can get so specialized at this point. Do you have your passing game quarterbacks coach and then your read option quarterbacks coach? I'm just,
it makes it crazy. And how it works so well, and rest in peace to two of the greatest gentlemen that I've ever had a chance to interact with, that Milt Teneper and Dan Young. Nebraska had co-offensive line coaches.
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy to think. Back in the day when you had some restrictions on your staff, they had 2 offensive line coaches. I don't know. They split up like the safety coaching this past year, where a guy like Adam DeMichelle, is probably valuable to their staff. Maybe not as the full-time guy, but is going to be, he's still going to coach if he stays at Nebraska and doesn't get, I don't want to say a full-time job. I don't know what you call it nowadays. Maybe more of a role, a better, different title. But this is big boy football. If you have the resources and you have room and you feel like it's not going to be too many cooks in the kitchen and you can help your main position coach guy, why not have a plethora of coaches?
Yeah, why would you not bring in another veteran on the field offensive line coach, for instance? Like,
Well,
why not?
Nebraska's
and
been
he's
at
had
their
some good.
best.
And Donnie has had a good support system with him.
Mhm. Yeah.
Nebraska's been at their best historically when they've had two defensive line coaches, Tony Samuel, Charlie McBride. All right. You have two guys outside and interior, and then Milt, of course, and Dan for sure. But even with Mr. Garrison and Barney.
Did you give it?
Yeah. I mean, the guy's at Ole Miss now. So,
By the way, do
Mr.
you see?
Garrison.
Have you seen how Ron Brown is listed on Huskers.com? He's listed. He's listed as fullbacks and returners, and that's kind of my point. That's kind of my point. Is just
let him coach
know
whatever
that?
the hell he wants.
Like,
that'd get better.
But that wasn't even a position 2 years ago. Like, there was no fullback and returners coach. But that's what Ron Brown is listed as on the football coaching staff: fullbacks and returners. Right? Does he move around with his kind of past? You know how Holgerson likes the inside and outside receivers. That's been his past. Can Brown take one of those?
Well, or just maybe move him to tight ends coach. He's done that before. Johnny Mitchell.
That's right.
That's currently Marcus Satterfield is actually
I know.
Well,
he's the tight ends coach.
Well, you've got the end of the month where people's contracts are up, and Satterfield's contract goes through 25. I mean, there's going to have to be a change in his salary.
That would be a pretty expensive tight ends coach, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I'm gonna say that's probably the highest paid tight end coach if you don't change his salary. I mean, and then the other thing is, we're enamored what Coach Mosey has done in Kansas City with his connections. I think you kind of want him on field. He's got a running back, wide receiver. You never know. That's why we say professional courtesy, because there aren't a ton of Power 4 jobs that have opened, but there's still some openings on staffs, where guys could be interviewing for jobs that, you don't hear those because they're position coaches. So you never know. I mean, it's the off-season content is not going to end on December 28th.
No.
I mean, we still got a bit, and this is Nebraska football. There's something new every day.
It's the finish line. It's your bowl game, and it's the end of the portal until it opens back up again. So,
well, it opens up again in January.
I know,
because you have the teams that play in bowl games after the 28th, and then you have the playoff teams that have a window of portal availability. I mean, talk about a mess.
Ed Foley's in the stream. His latest comment.
He's been in the stream the last 2 weeks.
Yeah,
it's only been a week.
My unit is getting better. You will see. Ed Foley says. We don't know if that's really Ed Foley. No confirmation as to whether or not that's actually him.
Sharpie, what do you got rocking as we wind it down?
No, we don't. We're not winding anything down. We're just getting started.
No, we got to wind things down.
What?
Some of us have some things I got to do. But you know what? We'll get together again on Saturday.
You changed, man. You changed.
I've changed.
I've been in a hotel room 5 of the last 6 Saturdays.
Omaha's got they have Iowa State this weekend, correct?
Play at Iowa State tomorrow. We're in Waterloo, Iowa right now, where I think it's snowing.
What are you in Waterloo for? What are you
played Northern Iowa last night.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cedar Rapids, is that right?
Well, it's the Cedar Rapids, Waterloo.
Did you hit the Cedar Rapids downtown after the game?
No, we're in Waterloo. So Waterloo, Cedar Falls, Cedar Rapids, Iowa City.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Quad Cities.
Quad Cities is over on the Mississippi River. It's past Iowa City on.
But isn't Iowa City part of that?
No.
Quad Cities?
No.
Cedar Rapids is.
No.
Who's Quad Cities? We got Moline, Illinois is one of them. Right?
Davenport.
You got Bettendorf in there. You got Moline in there.
Huh.
What about the place the American Pickers?
I feel like there's crossover. I feel like this is sort of a UK, Great Britain, England thing. It's like how many countries are in this country? How many cities?
So there's Northeast Iowa, and then there's Eastern Iowa, where that basically Cedar Rapids, Iowa City are. Waterloo, Cedar Falls, and then kind of next door is Cedar Rapids, Iowa City, but it's not like it's a suburb.
Okay, to one more thing.
You're in a suburb of the Quad Cities, is what you're saying.
In your world, yes. Yes, I can see the Mississippi from my hotel room.
So let me ask you this.
Oh, wait a minute. That's the Cedar River.
Yeah. What's your favorite
river
spot
made out of wood
in Iowa, not named Urbandale?
Favorite spot, Okoboji.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
My family bought a camper in Okoboji one time.
Just random or?
It's a nice Winnebago.
Is it still there? You just said it one time as if it was like a bag of chips. Like,
Well, it's the only time I've been to Okoboji was we went and bought a camper. It's
The Bunny was offered a bag of meth in Council Bluffs. Shocking enough.
for free, or did you
Then-
have to pay for it?
Well, they were negotiating something with her. I turned and walked away.
Yeah, there's a lot of people in Iowa who do not claim Council Bluffs.
I
They let Nebraska claim Council Bluffs, and Nebraskans don't claim Council Bluffs. Council Bluffs is kind of it's a city, and Potawatomi County is kind of on their own island.
It's a custody fight nobody wants.
Okay.
That's the best way to describe it.
As we wind it down here, let's take it back to Husker football. I got one last question for you, Gary, before I get you out.
I'm in the home, by the way. I'm in the home of Trev Alberts. Is that the question?
No. I'm going portal wish list. You got
Nice.
You got
How come he wasn't there last night for volleyball?
He knew how it was going to end.
Hey, the Devaney Center was cheering for Texas A&M.
I know they were, because they wanted to see him courtside Sunday.
Well, let's go. But portal wish list. Power rank Nebraska's positions of need, if you don't mind, for me before we get you out.
Ooh.
Here. You have Winery in. Give me like a top 3 in order what Nebraska needs to get out of the portal over the next week or so.
Offensive.
I wish I could.
Offensive tackle.
Yeah, there. Linebacker, offensive tackle. Remember, I want a safety. I think you need a running back. But that would not be at the top of my list. But I think at the top of my list, yes, you can see that receiver is a priority, and I think they're going to do well in the wide receiver category. But the thing
what positions are we not worried about right now?
Long snapper.
Yeah, long snapper, possibly punter if you get McAllister from Washington this weekend. Probably tight end. You're not worried about because you have some bodies in there and you have some younger guys that haven't played yet.
I feel good about probably the defensive back room.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't go get a running back, I think you're all right. You'd probably like to get one, but I think you can be fine there. I mean, if I'm power ranking it, I'm going. You need a linebacker. You've already swung and missed on 2. You need a linebacker. Defensive line, I think you can be all right. You probably like to pick up one more depth guy. That's funny. We'll get to that in just a second. Kobe asked what the temperature is in Gary's room.
83.
83. Oh my God.
That's hilarious. We set the line at 87.
It's actually 83?
It is 83.
Oh, that.
Why?
Huh?
Why?
Because I don't like to be cold. And every time I go into a hotel room, I crank that puppy up.
Oh, wow.
It's really
That
nice
sounds
in
miserable.
Here.
That
No,
sounds
it's
like
really
duck
nice.
butter all day.
I sleep really, really well.
Temperature in my house is 68.
Now, when I'm home, like the temperature is 70, but I also don't turn on my air during the summer.
That's more of like a money saving thing.
No, it's
you
not a
don't
money
turn on
saving
your
thing.
air in the summer?
I don't mind being warm.
Wow.
And
it makes sense why you liked Florida so much while you were down there. Because it's very humid.
Yeah.
Very hot. It's very it's uncomfortable.
Hold on. Let me go. I gotta go take a picture of the thermostat real quick.
Okay, this is gonna be good.
That's Gary just Jedi mind tricking us so he can run away and unplug his computer and get the hell out of this atrocity this morning.
There is some duck butter happening. This is wow.
That is Chafe City.
Yeah. Oh, 81.7. That's a little chilly in there. Might want to crank it up.
Throw on the winter coat.
Jeez.
Okay, so it was at 83, and then before I jumped on with you guys, I actually turned it off.
So we said Sharpie is half.
We were going to piss you off enough that the old internal body temp would rise up.
See, I don't sweat either, so it's like nice and comfy. It's nice and warm.
Huh? What's your? Have you ever done what is that? 23andMe or whatever? What do you trace back to?
I may have a little. I don't know. I may have like a Latin background.
Okay.
I mean, there's a lot, as you guys can see. There's a lot that looks Latin on me. Maybe a little Cuban.
Yeah, very classic Cuban last name, Sharp.
Yes.
Caribbean.
It's the Germans for Cuba. It's kind of last name.
Like Germans for Argentina.
Yeah. I mean,
Wow.
I know I get hammered for
That's
this all the
wrong.
time. I don't bring this up very often because I get hammered because, y'all not like us, I mean, womp, womp, womp. Maybe this is why people don't want to live with me that are the opposite sex.
That's why I'm sure.
Is that it? Has that been the
That's
been the history? Like everything's going great, and then just as they're
80
sitting there
80
perspiring.
81 degrees.
For those that were asking earlier, this is the one more thing portion of the stream.
Gary's temperature.
It's really nice in here. Like I'm
preferences
wearing shorts right now. So
okay.
How do we end this show now? I think it's time.
We say thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Really turning up the temperature in Lincoln, right? I think that's probably something. That's probably going to be in the title.
Yeah.
Turning up the temp.
Eat Beef, which is a great name for a stream name. It's my in-home sauna, but I don't sweat. And I remain clothed.
So are you ever going to do that polar plunge? You've seen that. People
Yes.
raise money and they just jump into a frozen lake. Something like that.
Yes, I've done it in the past.
So, really?
I do not
So
have
you
any,
can do
I
the
do not have any
extreme
pants on,
test.
that's correct.
We saw him get up.
I'm on the road. Omaha lost by 20 last night. They got F'd by the officials. Oh, it was bad. Like the
Was it
free
bad?
throw differential was about 35 free throws last night.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's almost like Michigan
and
State,
the
Nebraska.
guys that were
rebounding.
working. Paul Zelk was working the game.
Noted for that.
I'm not
Noted
familiar.
for that.
He is a well-known Big Ten official. Yeah.
Okay.
Omaha got, but I mean, it didn't. They got beat by 20.
Apparently, Guidus, the center from Michigan, is leaning towards Nebraska. Just getting that word.
Who's that? Who?
The backup
Guy-
center from Michigan.
Is it Guidus? Is that how you
I
say
think
it?
that's how you pronounce his name.
He was backup. He wasn't even the starter.
Well, I mean, the frontline guys. They're pretty good.
Yeah.
And they're not as good as their offensive line last year. He's a player that just kind of he hasn't hit the field yet. And but he looks the part. And remember, kind of forgotten in all this, and credit to Elijah, he brought this up, I think, on the midweek show, and I wasn't even thinking, Nebraska needs a center.
Yeah.
I mean, oh, by the way, hey, Ben Scott, thanks for being here for 2 years. We hardly ever talked about you, which is a good thing, and now you're gone.
Could you slide Justin Evans over?
You could, but I like him at guard, though. He's good.
Schmitty, you're right. I liked him at guard. I don't want the yo-yo.
Yeah.
What about Corcoran?
But
Is he coming back?
So, Gary, about that temperature. Yeah.
No, I'm serious. If he's coming back,
but he's
Tackle
got
hasn't
he's
worked
got an
out.
injury history. If you commit to him as center, I mean, that's a big loss. I wouldn't want to all of a sudden have him slide all the way over and play center this year. I would like to find somebody who is more comfortable playing center.
Guy just started 5 games, got dinged, and then lost his spot.
And
okay.
according
But he's played in the Big Ten, which I think is important. And look if you're in the offensive line room at Michigan, you've been coached up pretty well.
You're good.
I mean, they just don't take flyers on anybody to bring into that room because that is a Joe Moore type room that wins awards. So there's at least something there that Nebraska then can take a guy that's gotten on the field at least, have a plan for him, and then, they maybe get the benefit of, hey, we're playing more snaps and now I can play like I'm supposed to.
No, give me this Guidus guy and Toffee or Toffee, the kid out of Washington.
And guide
Those
us
are the two I
to
like.
prominence, huh? Guide us to prominence. That's what he's going to do. By the way, have we spoken a single word about Boston College or the bowl game today?
No, that's
we have
next
not.
week.
No, it's not, because it's going to be all pandemonium next week too.
That's
gonna be.
then that's when we do the Saturday bowl pre-show. We'll talk.
That's going to be the
then.
first time we talk about BC.
No one cares about.
No one cares about the actual games.
you'll wake up on that Saturday morning and be like, oh, cool, Nebraska plays today. I wonder
Yeah,
what
it's a bowl game. That's sweet. Let's pour a Bloody Mary and figure out how it'll go right or go wrong. I mean,
Oh, and then we'll have a referendum on what it means for the program.
Oh God, I can't wait. What happens if Nebraska's defense gives up like 35?
Then Dana better score 42.
enjoy the bowl games while they last, because I don't think bowl games, as we know it, will be lasting much longer in college football.
Ooh. This could be a whole show.
As we know it,
Hold on,
as
Elijah.
we know it, like what sponsors want to go pay for a bowl game with second and third stringers because all the starters have hit the portal and guys are opting out?
Omaha's own Scooters Coffee would be one.
Yeah, that's coming up, what, Tuesday night?
They could sponsor us here.
I just think
fine.
bowl season will change considerably, especially if you get more college football playoff expansion.
If you're not a playoff team, make a deal with a warm climate city and pick your opponent and go have your fare thee well. That's what you're going to have to do.
Well, get in your bowl pool confidence picks because the bowl season starts tonight.
Oh God, is it tonight?
Uh-huh.
My
The Salute to Veterans Bowl gets underway. South Alabama and Western Michigan.
Finally, somebody put that matchup together. Finally.
We've been clamoring for it.
Yeah. So, by the way, Boston College, think of all the Power 4 teams, is there a squad y'all have watched less?
I watched them against Florida State. I mean, we had to.
Right, I'm just talking overall, last decade or so. Like, name me 2 Boston College players. Anybody.
Matt Ryan.
Well, Matt Ryan, and then Williams, the running back,
Flutie, Phelan,
Luke,
who stabbed his somebody in the neck. The old running back that went first round. Cleveland drafted him. I know that.
I actually saw Boston College in a bowl game when Nebraska played in Miami.
Pete Mitchell.
It's
my favorite tight end ever.
There was another bowl game, and it was in. God, a different stadium. I think it's in where the Hard Rock Stadium is now, if I'm not mistaken. But it was Glenn Foley, brother of Ed Foley, quarterback of Boston College, playing. I can't remember who they were playing.
The best thing Boston College ever did was beat Notre Dame.
That's right.
In 1993.
I'm just saying, past 10 years, how often have you all just chilled and watched a Boston College game? Right? Like just
probably on Thursday night. So yeah.
Like, is there a less relevant Power 4 team?
Oh, you know what? I watched Boston College periodically when Hafley was there, who, by the way, was the first Power 4, then Power 5 coach to offer Heinrich Harburg a scholarship, which then triggered Nebraska to go and look at this kid at Kearney Catholic. And now he's gone. He left. This is kind of tells you about Boston College football. He left to go back to the NFL. As the DC with the Packers. And then that opened but you hire Bill O'Brien to try and bring attention to your program.
I like Bill O'Brien a lot.
I thought Bill O'Brien did a great job at Penn State for everything he had to put up with.
I think maybe the most relevant thing from Boston College over the past 10 years, and maybe it's for the younger listeners out there, they'll understand this one. It's from Vine, because he had Steve Adazio,
head
coach of Boston College. He's in the stadium and he goes, "What's better than this? Guys being dudes."
Kevin Gallick.
There was a time I wanted
Adazio. Nebraska.
There was a time I wanted Adazio. Wasn't because he would have been around the time of Riley of being a potential hire, if I'm not mistaken.
Who was the old Giants coach?
He was at Temple before that. He was at Temple before he was at Boston.
The 1-2 Super Coughlin. Coughlin at BC was kind of my BC era, if I ever had one.
Yeah.
Those were the days.
Sharpie, be good. Stay warm.
Thank you.
Appreciate you much.
I will. The unfortunate thing is we're traveling to Ames here in a couple of hours, and I won't get my 80 degrees.
No.
But when I get to Ames, when I get to Ames, I'm going to walk in and we'll be up to about 78,
Crank
80.
it up. Yeah.
Love it.
Until you guys have experienced it, don't knock it.
No, I'm Elijah can vouch.
You guys have roomed together.
Yeah.
All three of you have roomed together.
Yeah. No, I've never roomed with Mark.
No.
Oh, let's change that.
Should we? Y'all want to go to the Pinstripe Bowl? We could get nice and cozy there. Very small hotel rooms.
Look, no one wants to go with me to Penn State next year. So if you want to go to Happy Valley,
I kind of want to go to Penn State.
Put that on the list. Put that on the list because that might be their whiteout game. But the only problem I have, the last time I was at Penn State, driving back to Harrisburg on those 2-lane highways, it was a snowstorm, and you were white knuckling the entire way.
And it's windy, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
See, and we'll just drive all the way to Philly and go stay with Walter.
Yeah,
I like that idea.
Yeah.
Hey, Matt Rhule's return to his alma mater. I mean,
you think that'll be a storyline? You think there'll be a storyline of the AD at Penn State is one of his best friends?
Depends on the record at the time. What's November like?
Can we just get to Boston College, please?
Does Penn State have the best road to win this whole thing, by the way?
They do.
Empty calorie football program.
That's pretty good.
We can talk about that. We'll have a playoff game to talk about next week as well, and then a full day of playoff football.
But that means
no Boston
that means
College talk.
We'll be able to keep Rhule longer here because Franklin's going to win a national title this year, right? And then he's off the hot seat.
I wouldn't bet on that.
No.
Okay.
Big Game James will F up this cup of coffee, known as the most desirable path in the playoff.
Justice has been calling it, after you called him Big Game James, Justice has been calling him Small to Medium Game James. And that's
Justice. It's a mock, it's a mock. James Worthy's the one who gets that name. So.
All right.
Sharpie, be good, bud. Appreciate you.
Enjoy. Be safe, everybody. Enjoy. If you're going to the Devaney Center tomorrow for Nebraska, Wisconsin, as Nebraska tries to take down the guy from Goonies for the third time this year.
Oh, my God.
Out. Talk to you next week.
Unfortunately, I could do the truffle shuffle right now. Unfortunately, I got to eat better. Chris can't. Friend. Chris can't. Chris can't do that anymore because he drinks 8 gallons of water while sleeping. And
I've been eating better, but Elijah will be like, dude, shut up about your diet. So yeah, it's been a little bit more challenging this holiday season, but I'm still doing all right weight-wise.
So do you talk about it too much, and that's why Elijah says shut up about your diet, or is he's just like, no, dude, have these wings
in my mouth.
Yeah.
What?
You guys are feeding each other? What did you say?
No,
he's feeding you?
Putting words into my mouth.
Oh.
Yeah. I vent to him.
So when your diet is frustrating to you and you're just feeling some kind of way, you just
when my scale is frustrating.
Oh, yeah. It could be water retention, right?
That's probably
it could be muscle mass. I'm sure
I've started lifting again. I feel good about that. It's funny, the ankle I broke is this big. It's swollen. And it's going to stay swollen.
Have
when
you
the
tried
weather,
dry
one more time.
Have you tried dry needling?
No.
Get dry needling. We'll talk. Seriously.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
I had a screwed up ankle for a long time. Dry needle twice. Done.
Okay.
All done. All better. Mm-hmm.
On the next Hail Varsity Weekend Edition, dry needling.
I'm telling you.
That would be fun. That'd be a fun little live segment of Schmitty. Foot up.
I'm telling you. Anybody you see in the comments, anybody that's had it done, you're just sort of like, why didn't I do this before? What?
Well,
that's all I had to do.
Tell me about it now.
Okay, so this is a non-medical explanation of dry needling.
Leaving droves.
Yeah,
this will be the only way we can shut her down.
No.
People jumping off the boat.
No, I'm telling you. So dry needling is more on the Cairo Eastern medicine side than it is on the traditional Western medicine side.
Yeah.
Right. But it's you put the needles in and around nerve something. I don't know what you call them, like nerve
endings.
Nerve something. Put them in like these areas where nerves are. I don't even know what they're called, but you put them there, and then you have like a little bit of an electrical current, and what it does is it like stimulates the nerves in some way so that they fire better, which decreases swelling.
Okay.
Is kind of sort of my non-medical.
You're right. That was very non-medical.
Partially true explanation. But legitimately, if you're swollen in certain areas, a lot of times it's because your nerves are impacted, and so your muscles are firing too often, which makes them tight, which then makes everything swollen. You get the dry needling, it kind of fixes everything. The pathways are better. And I'm telling you, man, my ankle my foot looked like a loaf of bread, dude. There was no definition in it. It was just puffy. It was ridiculous. 2 dry needling sessions, and it's like, oh my God, I can run a 4.5. Let's see. Don't you guys get a doctor on the show every week? Have him explain it. Ask him about dry needling.
Yeah.
Ask him about dry needling. Honestly, you should do that.
Orthopedic surgeon, what do you say about dry needling?
See, yeah. Yeah, he might be against it because, he's part of the system. It's part of the system that is trying to keep the dry needling down.
Big
Kraynak, you be good.
Big medical on us.
You be good. Kraynak, we'll talk soon.
I had to done my calf once. It was hard.
Elijah, appreciate you.
Yeah.
I sweat profusely. The guy hit a nerve, literally.
Hail Varsity.
Started sweating profusely. That was the reaction.
YouTube.
Kind of like Gary doesn't do.
YouTube channel, Hail Varsity Radio, Twitter at H Varsity Radio, at Herbel
perspiration for the title.
Schmidt _radio. Walter, it is time for a cocktail. We'll talk to you next time on Hail Varsity. Thanks.
We had 2 comments in here saying dry needling is where it's at. Thank you.
And stay safe. I'll finish this. Stay safe with the weather this weekend, folks. Omaha has been a mess. Lincoln, I know we got some more weather moving through. So stay safe, everyone, this weekend.
Jam needles into your body, everybody.